I'm 84 years old, and there are things I never did. Not because I couldn't, not because life made them impossible, because I kept deciding that the timing wasn't quite right yet, that I'd get to them soon, that there was a better moment coming just around the corner if I was patient enough to wait for it. I waited my whole life. The better moment never came. There was a trip Maggie wanted to take, Scotland. Her grandmother had come from a small village outside Edinburgh, and Maggie had this quiet dream, not loud or demanding, just persistent, of standing in that place and seeing where her family began. She mentioned it first in 1978. I remember because we had just paid off the car, and I said, maybe next year when things settled down a little. Things did not settle down the following year. Daniel was in middle school and Claire was 8, and the furnace needed replacing. And there was always something, always a perfectly reasonable something that made Scotland feel premature. Not impossible, just not yet. Not yet became a decade, then 2. Then Maggie stopped mentioning Scotland out loud, though I believe she never stopped thinking about it. I found a folder in her desk after she passed, printed pages from travel websites, a list of villages near Edinburgh, a photograph of the countryside she had cut from a magazine, the date written in the margin in her handwriting, 2004. She had been quietly hoping for 30 years. We never went. I don't say this to make it sound like I was a cruel man. I wasn't. I was a careful man, a practical man. I believed in doing things properly, at the right time, with the right preparation, when the conditions were favorable. That felt like wisdom to me for most of my life. It took me until very late to understand it was fear wearing the coat of wisdom, because here is what I know now. There is no right moment. There is only the moment you are in and what you choose to do with it. The right moment is a story we tell ourselves to make the waiting feel responsible rather than afraid. I was afraid of spending money before we had enough, afraid of taking time away from work before I had earned it, afraid of committing to something large before I was certain it would go well. I wanted guarantees that life does not give, so I kept waiting for the guarantee, and while I waited, the years moved on without asking my permission. There was a book I meant to write. I know how that sounds. Every man thinks he has a book in him. But I had been teaching history for decades, and I had this idea, a real one, not a fantasy about a specific period of American rural history that I genuinely believed hadn't been told properly. I had notes, pages of them going back to the late 80s. I kept adding to them, refining the argument, telling myself I'd start writing when summer came, when I retired, when things quieted down. I retired at 67. Things quieted down. I did not write the book. I organized my notes instead. I read more research. I told myself I was still preparing, still getting ready, but I was 70 by then and 72. and the preparing was just another word for waiting. I was waiting to feel ready enough, certain enough, good enough to begin. I'm 84 now. The notes are in a box in the back bedroom. I don't go in there much anymore. The thing about waiting for the right moment is that it keeps you feeling like the thing is still possible. As long as you haven't tried, you haven't failed. The book is still a book you might write. The trip is still a trip you might take. Everything is preserved in a kind of permanent almost, and almost can feel very similar to eventually if you don't look at it too closely. I looked at it too closely about 10 years ago when Maggie got sick the first time. Nothing fatal that round, just a warning. But I remember sitting in the hospital waiting room and thinking with a clarity I hadn't had in years. We are not waiting anymore. Whatever we are waiting for is not coming to get us. We have to go to it. We did better after that for a while. Small things. We drove up to Lake Erie one September, just the two of us. No particular plan. Stayed 2 nights in a motel that smelled like carpet cleaner and looked out at the water every morning. Maggie laughed more those 2 days than I'd heard in years. I keep that trip somewhere close in my memory. It was nothing significant. It was the most significant thing. But even then, I didn't fully learn. I still caught myself doing it, deferring, postponing, deciding that the better version of a thing was worth waiting for, rather than taking the good enough version that was available right now. Old habits don't die because you have one clear moment of understanding. They keep going because they are built into the way you think. Maggie passed 3 years after that trip. I never told Daniel how much I admired the man he became, not properly, not directly. I kept thinking I'd find the right way to say it, the right moment when it wouldn't feel awkward or sudden. I'm still thinking that, if I'm honest. He's 58, I am 84. If there is a right moment, it needs to arrive soon. Maybe there isn't a right moment for that either. Maybe I just have to pick up the phone and say it badly and let it be imperfect. That might be the whole lesson, actually, condensed down to one plain sentence. Do it badly now rather than perfectly never. I wasted a long time trying to do things perfectly. The perfect time, the perfect preparation, the perfect version of the conversation. Perfection was just another way of not beginning. Another way of keeping things safe and theoretical and untouched by the mess of actual living. Ruth from next door told me something last spring. She's 71, lost her husband a few years back. She said she never waited for anything because she always knew waiting was just a polite word for fear. I laughed when she said it. Then I sat with it for a week. She was right. She said in one sentence what took me 80 years to understand. I'm not telling you this so you'll feel sorry for an old man in Ohio who didn't take his wife to Scotland. I'm telling you because you have time I don't have. And I know with absolute certainty that you are waiting for something right now. some version of the right moment, some signal that it's safe to begin. It isn't coming. The moment you have is the moment you have. The trip, the conversation, the thing you've been meaning to make or build or say, it does not get easier with more waiting. The window does not get wider. And the people you are waiting to do these things with are not guaranteed to still be there when you finally decide the timing is right. Maggie's folder is still in her desk. I haven't moved it. Sometimes I take it out and look at that photograph of the Scottish countryside she cut from a magazine in 2004. The hills are very green. The sky is grey. The way skies in those places always are. I don't know if that village is still there. I don't know if I could even make the trip now, but I think about going. And I think that if I were 60 years younger and sitting where you are sitting, I would not wait to find out.